Hey, HT family? Don't want to watch ads but still want to support your favorite channel? Here's a great solution. It's a win-win. Super easy. You can support us by using the Super Thanks button and help us keep making the videos you enjoy. By clicking the Super Thanks button, you can send a tip and your comment will be specially highlighted. You can also support us by watching ads for at least 30 seconds. Your support helps us keep sharing the videos you love. So, next time you're watching our videos, don't forget to use Super Thanks or watch the ads. Every contribution counts, and thank you all so much.
Hello and welcome on Eurosport. Hello and welcome to the 13th round of the FIA Formula One World Championship, the Portuguese Grand Prix. 71 laps around a very demanding circuit. It used to be demanding for the drivers on their necks. Now it's also demanding for the drivetrain. An overcast sky for the first time in 3 days here in Portugal, and I would say a 50% chance of a wet race, or a race that might start dry but is going to end as a wet one. So all action here this afternoon in Portugal.
And whether it rains or doesn't, the place on the circuit that's going to be probably the busiest of all is in the pit lane, because this is a race where we're going to see multiple pit stops. The minimum I think anyone will make is 2, but possibly Ferrari here with Gerhard Berger on that pole position may be required to make more than that. 3 is a strong possibility, and even some pundits have gone as far as saying, well, it could be even as many as 4. Now the reason for that is that new part of the Estoril Grand Prix track. There are 2 very slow left-hand, right-hand corners which require first gear, and when you've got something like 800 horsepower scrabbling to get all the way down onto the tarmac and get grip, that equates to high tyre wear, and that is tyre wear here in Estoril that will be the reason for pit stops rather than the normal performance drop-off. That's what we normally find the reason that teams decide to change tyres. So a race for strategy and the ability to overtake are paramount. This Estoril circuit, very few places that are reasonable to pass. Those that are at the end of the pit straight, but that is difficult. The other is on the run directly behind the pits down into the 3rd gear, very long left-hand corner. That's an easier part of the circuit, but nonetheless, you've got to be positive about it and leave no margins for error.
Damon Hill on the front row of the grid, and if we look at it from this angle, Damon will start on the left-hand side and Gerhard Berger on the right-hand side. But that is the clean side of the circuit, and Gerhard should, well, in theory anyway, get a better drive off the line. A dashboard of a modern Formula One car, a Ferrari, and that's pole position man Gerhard Berger's car. Gerhard wearing a little protective padding on his left elbow, the one he got operated on last year, and with these fast right-hand corners, that elbow might take a bit of hammering.
And of course, the carbon fibre chassis that Formula One cars are constructed from these days is totally unyielding, and on the moments when you maybe have to take a big armful of opposite lock, elbows do come into contact very heavily with the carbon fibre sides. So that side is where Gerhard had an operation last year, and it's the side that he wants to protect. And as I say, a very physical race indeed, from the first to the last of 71, a tough day's work.
The Portuguese Grand Prix, 71 spectacular laps. We'll be back after the break here on Eurosport. Gerhard Berger on pole position, Damon Hill alongside him. Then it's David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen, 2 young chargers on the 2nd row of the grid. Jean Alesi, Nukio Katayama, the 3rd row. Martin Brundle, Rubens Barrichello, Heinz-Harald Frenz and Jos Verstappen complete the top 10. Fittipaldi, Blundell, Irvine and Leto. Irvine setting the time, one of 12 drivers who set the time on Saturday afternoon. Panis, Morbidelli, the Cesaris and Martini, 15th through to 18th. Alboreto, Johnny Herbert, Eric Bernard, Eric Comas, 21 and 22. While 23rd is Yannick Dalmas, David Brabham, 24th, and the last row is Philippe Adams and Jean-Marc Drunon. In the on the starting grid, 26 drivers and non-qualifiers, the Pacifics of Bertrand Gachot and Paul Belmondo. It's a hello and welcome also to all the people at Earl's Court in London. who are there for the finals of the Eurosport Grand Prix Challenge. Hello, here from Estoril. Well, this man's got it all to do, John, on that run up to the first corner, and it's a long, long drag into the first corner. The Drivers' Championship, Michael Schumacher leads 11 points, Damon Hill behind. So if Damon wins, only 1 point difference when we go to Jerez in 3 weeks' time. The rest of the people that scored points, Jos Verstappen to third places in 8th position. Nicola Larini, of course, second place when he finished second in Imola. Fittipaldi, Frentzen, Katayama, Bernhard Wendlinger, and Wendlinger's replacement, Andrea de Cesaris, on equal points. Total of 24 drivers scoring points so far in 13 Grand Prix. Well, the Constructors' Championship, it's Benetton and then Williams-Renault, only 12 points behind. So that might be different when we leave Estoril here this afternoon. Ferrari is third, but there's McLaren, Jordan and Tyrrell, they're fairly close together. And also Ligier in seventh, not far behind. So, John, 71 laps. Here's Damon Hill. He needs to get into that first corner first, really, to get away from that Ferrari, because the Ferrari basically was slow in the warm-up.
Well, Ferrari didn't run any of their good sets of tyres this morning. They ran the worst of the 7 sets that they had to preserve their prime race sets to ensure that they get the maximum performance out of that car this afternoon. Of course, Gerhard Berger on the left-hand side of the track on the run down into the first corner. That's the clean side. Damon Hill alongside him, but on the dirtier part of the track. For me, the concern is David Coulthard in third place, Jean Alesi fifth. They're on the clean side of the track. Equally, Mika Hakkinen, who's directly behind Damon Hill. Those 3 other competitors are really going to push very hard. They will want to take as much advantage of the start as, of course, Gerhard Berger and Damon Hill want to do. But if Berger can lead into the first corner, he then can control the pace of the race. He can afford to slow it down to the pace that he wants to run at. And that, therefore, will not work towards Damon Hill or anybody else, because with Berger being quick in the straight, slowing it down in the corners, that also will have an effect on what the strategy teams might have prepared for this Grand Prix is going to be. Ferrari obviously want to lead. They obviously want to control that pace, because it may mean that they can do or can avoid making more tyre stops, refueling stops, than the strategy that they have already prepared, let's say, all things being normal. So for Damon Hill alongside Berger, this is a very crucial start indeed. But remember, back in Hungary, he was in a similar situation with Michael Schumacher. He got the jump on Schumacher, but then in the first corner, Schumacher just drove around the front of him, and Damon lost the advantage he'd already taken at the start. This time, I don't think he'd be so generous.
All the mechanics stepping aside, then we get a 30-second board in a minute, and then the green flag lap, the parade lap. No overtaking, of course, and then we come back to the start proper. This actually being the first lap, so it's 72 laps from now on. Cars passing left and right of this cameraman, a very brave cameraman who is sitting in the middle of the circuit and did everybody get away from their grid position. That's important, because if you don't get away, like what happened to Damon Hill last year, who stole the engine, or the engine stopped when he wanted to drive off his pole position, then, well, you got to start right from the back of the grid.
And interesting, just watching that front row of the grid, practice starts from Berger, from Damon Hill, from Coulthard, from Mika Hakkinen, and they're all very anxious and very conscious of the importance of a good, clean start into this first corner. So within a minute we'll know who is going to be the master, who will be in charge in Estoril. And that's the situation. Well, if you look back to last year, Jean Alesi was the man that leapfrogged to the front of that first lap, and he remained there in a car which wasn't as quick as the Williams Renaults or the Benetton Fords, but he was able to control the race, and that's precisely what I consider Gerhard Berger is going to do. But watch out for Jean Alesi. He is lightning off the grid, and he is prepared to take risks. He's prepared to go the long way round the first right-hand corner. You've got to be careful, because cars that have gone to the inside then file out to the outside of the corner, and that's where problems can begin.
John Alesi, of course, starting last year's Portuguese Grand Prix in 5th place as well. Going through Catwalk Park, as Damon Hill described the new right, left, right bit. And that, John, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a yellow flag actually on the very first lap in that corner, because if someone tries to overtake someone else, well, that's going to be, or potentially, a big problem.
I understand the reasons why drivers would like it, but on the other hand, these are meant to be the best drivers in the world. Why should they need a yellow flag to tell them not to pass? We're looking at World Championship drivers here, and I would think that that request probably hasn't been acquiesced. So wait and see anyway. It's the first time it's been used in a Grand Prix, and it may well have been deemed more prudent than anything else. But this is a Formula One World Championship event, and let's hope there's problems from Katayama indeed, and barely can he make it down into the entrance into the pit lane. And that's very disappointing indeed. He was 6th place on the grid, and for Rubens Barrichello, he will now have a clear run directly behind Mika Häkkinen.
I think there's a gearbox problem for Ukio Katayama. His engine's running, but the car just doesn't want to go any further. Yellow flags are being waved. That should be for Ukio Katayama, and now has someone else stalled. That is what I want to know. I think when Katayama stays there, the Grand Prix will go ahead. The yellow flags are being taken in, so the green flag should be waved. There's the man with the green flag. Then the 5-second board will go up, and then the red light goes on, and we turn to green. The 5-second board's up. The lights in the middle of your screen are red and green. We're racing. Who's got the best start? Gerhard Berger makes a very good start indeed, but also Heinz-Harald Frentzen makes a very good start.
And David Coulthard likewise has got himself ahead of his teammate Damon Hill, and Damon has lost 2nd place to his teammate David Coulthard. Alesi in 4th, Mika Häkkinen loses ground back in 5th. But we've all got through the first corner cleanly. Can they get through 2nd and 3rd? Look at the mass of cars, left to right, people swapping positions all the way, looking to gain advantage.
Very good start from Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's now in 7th position. And whatever he's done, he's taken Jos Verstappen with him, who's right behind him. Martin Brundle basically lost out a little bit on that start. So Brundle moving from 7th back to 10th. There we see him. This Ukio Katayama.
Well, Katayama underway, but misfortune for him and for the Tyrrell team. But clearly, look at Martin Brundle trying to dive down the inside. But clearly the left-hand side of the track was a distinct advantage because Berger and Coulthard got away cleanly. Damon and Mika Häkkinen seemed to get bogged down, whether it was just wheel spin or whatever. But David Coulthard and beginning to draw marginally away from teammate Damon Hill, but this is the first lap. And let's see just what happens as the cars come on to the straight, because it was on that long and renamed Ayrton Senna curve that Damon Hill was particularly quick throughout the 2 days of practice and qualifying. But there, Gerhard Berger in control, and believe me, he will now control this Grand Prix.
1.02 seconds, the gap between Gerhard Berger, the race leader, and David Coulthard in 2nd place. Hill, Alesi, Häkkinen and Barrichello, that is your top 6 after 1 lap, so 70 laps to go in this Portuguese Grand Prix. Good start from Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 7th position. And so far we've seen 19 cars passing start-finish. There's top 6, Berger, Coulthard, Hill, Alesi, Häkkinen, Barrichello. Very early days.
Well, Gerhard trying to put as much light between himself and David Coulthard. You can see the gap, and it's probably remaining very stable. It's around about a second. But this is the part of the track where Ferrari in particular has been hurting most. It's very slow. You put the power on with the Ferrari, it comes on. There you see exactly what we're talking about. 800 horsepower coming through 2 14-inch wide rear wheels and tires. The power overcomes the grip.
It was the gap on the previous lap, 1.026 seconds. Let's see what it is after lap 2. The gap between Hill and Coulthard was 0.08, and they're a little bigger to Jean Alesi again. But Alesi is losing contact with Damon Hill in 3rd position. The gap now, well, roughly the same, 1.08 between Berger and Coulthard. Fastest man at the moment on the circuit is actually Damon Hill in third position. John, the Ferrari's been very quick, 23.163. Gerhard Berger's lap is so far, and Berger during the morning warm-up being a little quicker, but then the two Williams were much quicker than Gerhard during the morning warm-up. Could Gerhard be running maybe on a three-stop race and Williams on a two-stop? Then he needs a big advantage before the first time he stops.
Well, I think Ferrari are really looking at a three-stop race regardless, because from a tyre wear and a tyre performance point of view, that's really what they've got. There's no choice in it. I'm sure that Williams will try and conserve and get away with a two-stop race. Their car much easier on tyres through this section of circuit, and the drivers less exuberant. David Coulthard and Damon Hill have not been using their right leg and getting massive power slides, as we've seen from both Alesi and Gerhard Berger. And basically, mechanically and aerodynamically, the Williams is a superior car to the Ferrari.
Top three getting away from the rest of the field. The end of lap 3. Gerhard Berger just into the 1:22.9. Coulthard and Hill still second and third. 1 second exactly between Berger and Coulthard, and a second between Coulthard and Hill. Then it's nearly 2 seconds to Jean Alesi. So here we see the top three, and in the background we just caught a glimpse of Jean Alesi, but those four basically are in a class of their own, because Mika Häkkinen already nearly 7 seconds behind race leader Gerhard Berger, while fastest lap 22.858 David Coulthard.
Well, Damon holding station behind his teammate David Coulthard, and one would expect that at some point, and I would expect that point to come probably just before the first pit stops, that David will yield his second place to Damon Hill and allow him to move forward and try and attack Gerhard Berger, force the pace with Berger and try and get into the lead. But as long as Berger is ahead of this Williams duo, they're not really going to have too much opportunity. We may have to wait and see a repeat of what we saw 2 weeks ago in Monza, when the lead of the Grand Prix there was taken over during a pit stop. Berger sadly got bulked by Oliver Panis' Ligier, and that enabled David Coulthard and Damon Hill to take the lead. And at that point then the Ferrari challenge really just tended to drop back, and it was only in the closing laps that Berger, when the two Williams then dropped off their race pace, was able to close back up. But Williams really, from that point on, had control of the Italian Grand Prix.
The end of lap 4 with the top four unchanged. Berger, Coulthard, Hill, Alesi, while Häkkinen and Barrichello complete the top 6. We're on lap 5 of 71. Rejoin us after the break here on Eurosport. Welcome back on Eurosport. The race is on. Gerhard Berger and David Coulthard. The gap at the end of lap 5 was 0.6 of a second, but I think it's closing down. David Coulthard, especially when the corners comes on the middle section of the circuit, there he is very strong indeed. And Damon Hill at the moment sitting back just a little bit. But unchanged, the top 6, Berger, Coulthard, Hill, Alesi, Häkkinen, Barrichello.
Well, really, what we're seeing is what we knew would happen, and that is Gerhard Berger is using the tyres in his Ferrari harder than David Coulthard and Damon Hill are on their Williams Renault. And in the low-speed corners, you can see that the Ferrari is clearly sliding around more than the Williams, and that's why Coulthard and Damon Hill are now able to draw up to the back of the Ferrari. But Gerhard won't be too concerned about it in my mind, because he knows there are not too many parts of the circuit where overtaking is possible, and if Coulthard decides to have a little sniff down the inside, he'll find that Gerhard Berger knows how to shut a door. While all this is going on, of course, Jean Alesi, who had dropped back, that'll give him an opportunity to maybe ease his way back up onto the tail of the two Williams Renaults. There you can see the gap, first, second and third. We're still waiting for Alesi to come into view, but Gerhard Berger now has to just resign himself to the countdown to his first pit stop and hope that David Coulthard really isn't too serious about challenging for the lead.
If we 71 laps, John, and if we are thinking of a two-stop race, we expect people in around lap 22, 23 maybe at the earliest, and that could go on until 25. If you're on a two-stop race, that is, of course. If you're on a three-stop race, I'll imagine people in around lap 16.
Berger went wide in turn 2 and got very wide, or sorry, a lazy, very wide over the curb, and that was a moment for a lazy. Well, he's been doing that more or less throughout the weekend, and again you can see the problem that a lazy has, probably exaggerated in relation to teammate Gerhard Berger, but the tyre grip is going away. It's not just a one-end, it is front and rear. So I think clearly that Lazy is going to be the first of the Ferraris to stop, and I would imagine it will come round somewhere 15 or so laps into this Grand Prix.
Sean Lazy currently some 5 seconds behind, but what's more...
Gerhard Berger is out. Gerhard Berger has pulled off just before the revision to the Estoril circuit. His Grand Prix is over. David Coulthard is leading the Spanish Grand Prix. Damon Hill is in second place. Jean Lazy in third, and that is disappointment, not just for Gerhard Berger, but for everybody who was wanting to see a real battle for the lead. Now the lead clearly and easily in the hands of David Coulthard. Damon Hill has only to wait for the indication from Coulthard to come to say, Damon, the race is yours.
Gerhard Berger, the first retirement of the Portuguese Grand Prix here at Estoril. David Coulthard leads teammate Damon Hill. It's not the first time David's led a Grand Prix, but I do believe it's the first time he's leading it this early in the race. The pair have got a gap of about 4.5 seconds to Jean Lazy. Then it's Hakkinen, Barrichello and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Again, from the view of David Coulthard, powering out of that corner. Well, it looks like drivetrain to me, but...
Well, it was certainly very sudden and terminal for Gerhard Berger, and very disappointing indeed. He worked extremely hard for 2 days here in Estoril. He took advantage of Friday's conditions, got his car onto pole position, wasn't able to match it on Saturday. The two Williams made marginal improvements. Well, the lead now clearly handed to David Coulthard. Damon Hill in second place, and Jean Lazy some 5.6 seconds in arrears.
And then you have Hakkinen, Barrichello, Frentzen, Verstappen, Brundle, Fittipaldi, Blundell, Irvine and Hannes, the top 12 on lap 8. And in the meantime, the pace of David Coulthard now 1:22.961. Damon Hill 1:23.7. Lazy in the 1:24s. Basically everybody else 1:24s, 1:25. So Lazy, the remaining Ferrari here at Estoril, but that's a Ferrari that is sliding around quite a lot.
Well, much further down the field, round 7th, 8th and 9th, there's a bit of a battle going on with Jos Verstappen and Martin Brundle, and that's a battle really that's been going on since the opening lap. And beyond that, Fittipaldi in 9th. He's got Mark Blundell right on his gearbox, and he's got Eddie Irvine pushing as well. Hannes is pushing Irvine, so that's the heart of the race right now. What's going on at the front really is more of a procession, a demonstration from the Williams-Renault team.
Hakkinen to Barrichello, 1.968 is that gap, and then there's 6.1 to Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 6th, but then we start, as John just said, 0.8 to Jos Verstappen, and from Verstappen to Brundle, just under half a second, and from Brundle then to Fittipaldi, that's a bigger gap, that is 2.1 seconds.
And looking at Mika Hakkinen coming onto the straight, the corner that caught him out last year, very wide indeed. And the reason simply is he's got Rubens Barrichello only 2 seconds behind him, and Barrichello trying to get closer to Hakkinen to really get into battle.
Both Coulthard and Hill in the 1:22s. New fastest lap for both drivers, so fastest lap for Coulthard, fastest lap of the race. And as this race is run on basically a new circuit, we've got 2 extra corners here at the revised Estoril circuit. That means that every fastest lap is automatically a lap record. 23 years old, and got a sense of humor and bloody quick, John.
He certainly has. In fact, he's got very many more qualities than those two you just mentioned, and he is unquestionably one of the new generation of drivers who will have a very long career indeed. And in many respects, it's sad to see David Coulthard in his last race for the Williams Renault team this year, because, of course, in 3 weeks' time, Nigel Mansell will return and take over the car that Coulthard has been guiding since the tragedies of Imola back in April. But Coulthard's future, in my mind, is now firmly cemented in Formula One. And the question arises, will he actually drive for another team in those 3 Grand Prix, or will he take the decision in the knowledge that he will be the driver alongside Damon Hill in 95? I don't know. It's one of the questions that has been asked throughout the weekend here in Estoril. And, well, I don't even know whether David Coulthard is entirely sure as to what his future will be.
One promise he did make, John, that if he's not racing in Jerez or the other 2 Grand Prix, then he will come up and do some commentary with us.
Well, he's very good at that as well, but I think he should stick to his day job, because David Coulthard is a young driver who clearly has a future. And Damon's just noting the back of Damon's car as he came out, a little bit of back-end stepping out. Now, there's no pressure on the Williams duo. They're really just controlling the race. Coulthard, the quicker of the 2 cars on the last lap by just under half a second. So there's no need for them to run any quicker than they're doing. Alesi, he's some 7 seconds in reality behind Damon Hill and dropping further back.
Talking about dropping further back, John, talking dropping a lap further back at the moment. Well, first pit stop is for Pierluigi Martini, and that doesn't look like a scheduled stop on lap 12 to me. Tyres are still in the tyre warmers, you can see that on the left, so definitely some sort of problem with Pierluigi Martini's Minardi.
The battle for 4th place between Mika Häkkinen and Rubens Barrichello is basically stalled at about 2 seconds. So that gap has remained constant now for the last 3 laps. But Frentzen has got Verstappen all over him, and he's got Martin Brundle all over him. Christian Fittipaldi, some 3 seconds behind, is being pursued by Mark Blundell, and he's got Eddie Irvine a second and a half behind him. And once again, Oliver Panis in leading Ligier, giving Irvine a fairly tough time.
And the lap record for David Coulthard, who's got a fastest lap behind his name already. And he did that in Hungary when he set fastest lap of the race. Sorry, Hockenheim, when he set fastest lap of the race during the German Grand Prix. Coulthard leads Hill, Alesi, Häkkinen, Barrichello and Frentzen after 13 laps here in Estoril. Plenty of action to come, because the pit stops are about to start after the break. We're on lap 15 of the Portuguese Grand Prix, 15 of 71. 1 retirement so far, and that was race leader Gerhard Berger on lap 6. David Coulthard's been leading since. Hill, Alesi, Häkkinen, Barrichello and Frentzen complete the top 6. The difference between Coulthard and Hill, 4.1 seconds. Then is Alesi and a further 9 seconds behind Damon Hill. Well, John, lap 15 we're on. If you're on a 3-stop race, we're coming close to your first pit stop. Also, maybe some teams have decided to come in early for the first pit stops and then have a big middle, or then can see how much tire wear there is or how much performance, and still you have some leeway. You can come in 3 times or 2 times.
Well, that's the option every team has, and of course you've got to bear in mind the difficulty of a circuit like Estoril. Overtaking is hard, so you may choose to go very light fuel for the first segment and try and get a bit of a gap and put yourself out of, let's say, out of phase with some of the other cars around you. But look at Mika Häkkinen, you can see there on his right front there's a band, a dark band just to the middle outside of that tyre, and that looks like pickup. Now that's where the rubber around the circuit is picked up on the tyres. That is a problem. It's been a problem really throughout the weekend. And it's not just Goodyear rubber, there's Avon, Pirelli, I don't know what else has been on the circuit. So it is tyre related, a lot of the decisions this weekend. But Mika Häkkinen, 3 seconds, almost 4 in fact. And that is not a very good effort from John Marcuno. We've seen him spin most of the weekend, and he's been consistent again for us this afternoon.
Well, he was helped a little bit by LaRousse, I think, turning into that corner.
Looks to me like puffs of smoke coming from the back of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren Peugeot as he was turning into those new corners. That didn't look to me like it was brake smoke. It looked to me more lift off and on the overrun from the engine, but we'll wait and see. It's still a very early point, but it's a little telltale sign for us to keep an eye on. And the gap marginally increased between Häkkinen and Barrichello, 2.2 seconds, but in reality, insignificant.
David Brabham is in the pit, and that is an unexpected pit stop. Here again, as we saw with Martini earlier on, the tyres were still in the tyre warmers, and we're back with the fastest cameraman so far, David Coulthard, on lap 17. He is race leader, making his way through traffic. We've had quite a few people being lapped yet. Kunon, Brabham, Adams, Martini, well, and of course Gerhard Berger, who's out of the race. But there we see the slower cars.
Yes, and the first of those cars, Dalmas and his LaRousse Ford. And David will want to position himself in such a way as that when he exits this long center curve, he can maximize the slipstream from Dalmas's LaRousse Ford, pull out, get alongside and pass him before he comes under braking. There you see Yukiya Katayama, who lost so much ground at the start, side by side with Michele Alboreto, one of the old chestnuts these days in Formula One. But Coulthard, race leader, safely passed Yannick Dalmas. That is a copybook pass. And, you know, when you look at David Coulthard, one of the things that impresses me most about him is his ability to use the traffic to his own advantage. He did it brilliantly in Belgium, and there's another fine example of the use of traffic to your advantage.
Coulthard being a couple of tenths quicker on that lap than Damon Hill, and a lazy some 8.5 seconds behind the other Williams Renault in second place.
And it's going to be interesting to just see the relative abilities of David Coulthard and Damon Hill, because in traffic this year, there's no doubt that Coulthard has been the more decisive overtaker, and not just overtaking, but again using the traffic here now behind Eric Comas, the teammate to Yannick Dalmas. Once again, David has got to decide, am I going to take a risk and run up close to the back of these two cars, or will I wait until I'm at a part of the circuit where I can use those cars to my advantage? He's going to do that. He's going to run up the back of Comas on exit of the center curve, get past. There's another car just ahead of Comas.
Coming into the pits, John.
He is indeed the first stop, and this is the opportunity now Damon Hill has to take the lead of this Portuguese Grand Prix, and I don't think that he will ever relinquish it till the end.
This is an early stop for David Coulthard. It's on lap 18. I don't believe the Williams team would be on a 3-stop race, or maybe they did go with a lighter car for David Coulthard early in the race, and a little heavier car for Damon Hill, who maybe comes in about 3 or 4 laps time.
Well, that looked to me to be a 2-stop, because it took about 10 seconds for the fuel to go in. And if that's the case, this is just a 2-stop race for David Coulthard. But of course, Damon Hill now leading the Portuguese Grand Prix, the place he has wanted to be throughout the weekend. He will, of course, have to make his pit stops. But again, it is going to be a factor of traffic, because David Coulthard is using and has used throughout the season traffic clearly to his advantage. Good pit stop from the Williams team for David Coulthard. So back on the track, and Gianni Morbidelli in his footwork forward makes his way on the rev limiter at 120 kilometers per hour, because that is the speed limit in the pit lane during the Grand Prix.
Gianni Morbidelli coming in and leaving 9.1, a little quicker than he might have taken on a little less fuel than this car has.
But also remember, the Ford HP engine doesn't need quite as much fuel as the Renault V10, so that's the reason why that stop was marginally quicker. But race leader Damon Hill now in for his first of what we believe are going to be 2 pit stops. In the meantime, the battle continues between Mika Häkkinen and Barrichello, and Barrichello not just visually is closed up, but on the computer, the Tag Heuer computer, it is 1.7 seconds.
Damon Hill out of the pit, and Damon is just behind teammate David Coulthard when he passed us, I think. Anyway, Alesi is leading the Grand Prix, and when he came in, Damon Hill was in second place, but, well, is he still? Mika Häkkinen might be ahead of Damon, and so is Barrichello, I think, anyway. So he's dropped 1, 2, 3, 4 places. There's a Tyrrell. Is that Katayama? No, it's Blundell in the pits. So Mark Blundell at the end of lap 19 coming into the pits for his first pit stop. Now we're waiting for the McLarens, I think, as well to come in the pits for their first stop. And
Rubens Barrichello has taken half a second out of Mika Häkkinen's third place on that last lap. So closing down on the Marlboro McLaren Peugeot driver. And Barrichello and I'm sure Häkkinen both on a 2-stop Grand Prix. Certainly as far as the Jordan team are concerned, they felt that a 1-stop race was possible in terms of wear and performance. But in fact, the 2-stop race is the quicker way to complete 71 laps of this Estoril track.
John Alesi leading the Grand Prix, and again running on those high curves. Alesi running in the 1:24.6s at the moment. Well, Verstappen and Brundle are coming into the pits as well. And you can't see that on your screen because we're following race leader John Alesi, but there's Jos Verstappen coming into the Benetton pits.
And just behind there's a McLaren in the pit lane as well. And that's Martin Brundle in for his first stop. So this is really sort of the shuffle of the cards that we were expecting. In the meantime, Alesi, fistfuls of understeer, he just plonks his foot in the throttle, makes the car pivot around the front as the back end swings wide. He has no concern or fear. He just knows that, well, this Ferrari for him is just like a grown-up go-kart.
Alesi leading the Grand Prix. We're on lap 21. When is he going to come into the pits? That is the big question. Häkkinen second, then Barrichello in third, fourth Coulthard, fifth Damon Hill, sixth Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and in seventh Jos Verstappen. That is the situation. We've nearly had the first round of pit stops. Plenty of action to come here on Eurosport after the break. Welcome back here on Eurosport. We're on lap 23 of 71, and we've got Jean Alesi leading because David Coulthard's gone into the pits and Damon Hill's gone into the pits for a pit stop. Mika Häkkinen is second, third Rubens Barrichello, fourth Coulthard, fifth Hill, sixth Frentzen. David Brabham in the pits again, this time for fuel and tyres. So another pit stop for Hill. Herbert out of the pits right now, while Bernard's in the pits. We've seen most of the top 7 actually in the pits, apart from Häkkinen, Alesi and Barrichello.
The top 3, and there we go. Mika Häkkinen dives off to the right into the pit lane. That elevates Rubens Barrichello up now into second place, and Jean Alesi also the race leader in for his first stop. So in fact Rubens Barrichello leads once again a Grand Prix, and of course he has to decide, or the team will have to decide at what point they want to bring him in. 8.6 seconds, a quick stop from the Ferrari team, and Mika Häkkinen coming out directly behind him, so once again good pit work from the McLaren team as well.
Alesi and Häkkinen gaining 1.2 seconds on the in-lap. So a very quick in-lap, a good pit stop, and the gap between Alesi and Häkkinen should be under 2 seconds. Eddie Irvine in the pit, so it's all happening here at Estoril. It's pit stop time, crunch time, and these times you're happy you're going to back home. our computer telling us what the situation is. It is Rubens Barrichello leading, and then it should be Coulthard and Hill when we pass at the end of lap 24. The lap we're on, we're nearly 1/3. We've got 30% done of the Grand Prix anyway. Alesi, new tyres. He's got grip again. Interesting, John, that John Alesi put brand new tyres on that car.
Well, I think Alesi needs every advantage he can get from that set of tyres. He tends to use them very, very hard indeed. And in effect, when you use a fresh tyre very hard, you actually can cause the tyre to lose performance sooner than those drivers that are a little bit more sensitive or gentle on it. So maybe Alesi trying to find every advantage that is possible. Of course, those tyres would have come out of tyre warmers up around about 100 degrees pre-set temperature. And the sooner you can get on the gas out of the pits and maintain that temperature, the more advantage you're going to get. Well, there is race leader Rubens Barrichello in the Sassel Jordan Hart. But some 4.7 seconds behind is David Coulthard, who's had his first stop. Damon Hill dropping a little further behind Coulthard, now 2.2 seconds. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen for the first time featuring in the top 6, a further 10 seconds behind Damon Hill.
Verifying. Going through that very fast right-hander, dropped down to 14th position after his pit stop, but then there's quite a few people ahead of him who should be behind him. We'll see him on the next lap because there's still people coming in for pit stops at the end of lap 24. But Rubens Barrichello is one of those that should come in fairly soon, complete another lap. 1:25.4. Coulthard and Hill follow, and they are a second quicker. Damon Hill, the quickest of the three drivers in that top three.
Well, we're on lap 26, and if Barrichello is planning to stop twice, this is about the point where he should be coming into the pits. But let's reflect back a month now to the Belgian Grand Prix, where in fact Barrichello opted to go for a one-stop strategy. It wasn't going to win in the race, but it was possibly going to get him onto the podium. And it's quite conceivable that Jordan and Barrichello have worked out something that they think they can get away with. They knew that starting where they were back on the fourth row of the grid, that leading from the front wouldn't be possible, but getting to the front certainly was possible if they did take the option of just stopping once. So I think within the next lap or two we will know clearly what was the decision for Barrichello, currently our race leader.
Eric Comas about to be lapped by race leader Rubens Barrichello. Comas could be on a one-stop race, John. He might try and go the distance on one stop.
Well, Barrichello into the pits, so this is a two-stop race for the young Brazilian. And David Coulthard once again resumes the lead of this Portuguese Grand Prix. And this is virtually the completion of the top 10 runners in for their stops. So the Jordan team go to work, a fresh set of tyres, fuel in. And a good stop, 7.8 seconds. And again, you can judge how an engine responds in a Grand Prix by the length of time that fuel hose is connected. So the hard engine giving reasonably good fuel economy, it enables them to get in and out with that vital second in hand.
David Coulthard lapping Ukio Katayama, taking Damon Hill with him, and Katayama being very good, staying well over to the right, letting the leaders through. Coulthard and Hill, when we get back to start-finish, I think they've got a massive lead, and they probably have a lead over Heinz-Harald Frentzen in third position. Frentzen, who had that very good start, straight into 7th position, then became 6th when Gerhard Berger retired, and now he should be in the top 3. Frentzen hasn't made a pit stop yet. Philip Adams has. That's the Belgian out of the pits. The only Belgian to qualify for the Portuguese Grand Prix.
Well, traffic once again with Yannick Dalmas already had a lap put on him some laps ago, and Coulthard again overtakes, actually ideally, Damon Hill not close enough to take advantage of the gap that Coulthard made, but now sliding inside Dalmas. And this process is going to continue throughout the Grand Prix because Comas involved in the battle with Michele Alboreto in his Minardi Ford, and those two Ford-powered teams fighting as hard for their positions. You're talking about 18th and 19th, as the Williams are for first and second. Comas trying to ease his way underneath Michele Alboreto, but Alboreto, a very hard man, he's not going to yield his 18th place to Comas in 19th. And now Coulthard's got to be careful because this battle is absorbing Comas and Alboreto to the point where they're not really conscious of what's happening behind them. And look again, look, Comas diving all over the circuit. Now Coulthard in trouble on the gravel. Damon Hill slides through, and there Damon Hill took full advantage of a situation which caught out David Coulthard.
So Damon Hill leads the Portuguese Grand Prix. That's what he wanted to do from the start. Well, he's taken the lead on lap 28 of 71. And now Damon ideally placed, well, Comas going into the pits, so just Michele Alboreto then to lead. But let's see what happened here. Coulthard, that's the previous lap.
Well, it just shows you how swings and roundabouts work for drivers. Coulthard got caught out by Comas, who was battling with Michele Alboreto. Damon Hill took full advantage of David Coulthard, and again, look at this. Philippe Adams not using his mirrors, shutting the door on second place man. The reality is, of course, now the situations have reversed. Damon Hill is in charge and in control of this Portuguese Grand Prix. No threat will come from David Coulthard.
Very small mistake, though, John. I don't even know whether you can talk about a mistake because, it did catch him out.
I think in more he caught himself out. He really overran into the back of Comas. He had to back off, and there, sadly, one of the two.
Katayama out of the race, and the man that had a difficult start to this Portuguese Grand Prix now definitely out of the race. Damon Hill, very good, overtaken Michele Alboreto early on that lap, and now there's daylight between him and David Coulthard. Damon's got the bit between his teeth, and he is on his way. He wants to win this Grand Prix, and in 3 weeks' time, there's 1 point between himself and World Championship leader Michael Schumacher. But we're on lap 29 of 71. Plenty of action to follow here on Eurosport after the break. Welcome back on Eurosport. Second placeman David Coulthard, 2.4 seconds behind race leader Damon Hill. Damon Hill, last lap 23.58. David Coulthard at 24.53. So Damon nearly a second quicker on that lap, and there wasn't any traffic around. So Frentzen is in third, Alesi fourth, Hakkinen fifth, Barrichello sixth. 1 round of pit stops to go. Apart, well, for Frentzen, that could well be his first pit stop. Johnny is lapping 25.8. That's slow, basically. He is in third position, and he could be the man that has decided to go for a one-stop race.
Well, when you start all the way down, as Frentzen did, and I'm just looking on at 9th place, it's a gamble. You've got to take gambles sometimes. And if you feel that the problems of overtaking are too great, and doing two-stop races will mean, in the case of catching up to the back markers, you may well lose time. Again, going into the pits and getting out of phase with everybody else may give you more running time clear of traffic.
John, could Damon Hill have held back a little early in the race, because now he's lapping consistently a second quicker than David Coulthard?
Well, I would say that he wasn't holding back consciously, but Damon appears to be able to run quicker when he's free of traffic than he does when he's in traffic. And probably, in the case of Coulthard, he's normally very good in traffic. And the difference between traffic and no traffic is, I would say, less than it would be with Damon Hill. But right now, Damon certainly stamping his authority on this Grand Prix. And that's what I wanted to see from Damon. I wanted to see a demonstrative performance, because when it comes to going to the Spanish Grand Prix, or European Grand Prix in Jerez, he's going to have to come into conflict and contest with Michael Schumacher on a circuit which will not favor one over the other. It'll be a straight shootout between these two men with just 1 point between them, assuming Damon can continue on untroubled and win here this afternoon.
Damon 31.6 on that last segment. 31.8 David Coulthard. The gap to .245 grown again. And we see at the end of lap 32 what the gap is. Then we know whether Coulthard was quicker on that last segment of this circuit. 3.8, he was a little. Now maybe David Brabham played a little part in that, although he did get out of the way pretty good.
Yeah, just even a car being ahead of you, even though it may well work to your advantage and pull over, it's a slight distraction, and it takes a great deal of confidence in yourself and in that other car to know that you are going to go through regardless. So even in situations where a driver is cooperative, and I'm quite sure David Brabham is looking backwards as much as he's looking forward, it isn't always possible to give the best to the lead cars.
We've lost Heinz-Harald Frentzen somewhere. I can look out of the window, see whether he's in the pits. The team is waiting for him. Well, there's Gerhard Berger explaining to Niki Lauda what's happened, and probably something like, well, I was pushing the pedal on the right, but it didn't want to go forward anymore.
In the meantime, teammate Jean Alesi in third place, putting yet another lap. So there's the view from Alesi just behind the head of Jean Alesi as we come into this very, very tight and breakup of the picture from the onboard cameras. But you could just see from that shot before breakup how tight and how steep that climb. Now, it's a part of the circuit not particularly popular with the drivers, but then the return to the old circuit, that right-hand corner, has provided absolutely superb pictures of cars, particularly Ferraris, coming out on full throttle in full-blooded slides.
Black lines on the circuit. Jean Alesi in the background, you see Mika Häkkinen trying to get out of the slipstream of Yannick Dalmas. That's LaRousse pretty quick down the straight, but we also can see when you see the two cars head on, there's a lot more wing on the McLaren than there is on the LaRousse.
And now Barrichello's got the same battle as Häkkinen slides under Philippe Adams and again just uses the traffic very selectively. Indeed, Barrichello has also got past, but he then will have the same problem with Philippe Adams and with the old-style Mugen Honda V10 engine. It's still pretty powerful. Waved yellow flags. Off on the left-hand side of the track is traffic, so no overtaking in that area. Not until they get a stationary green flag is it permissible to overtake. But there, not a green flag, a blue flag being shown. Barrichello looking very, very hard indeed to see, can he get through? Is he going to lose ground yet again to Häkkinen? Well, he has. And Barrichello will look through these sections of circuit to try and make up ground, because the difference in horsepower between the McLaren with the Peugeot V10 engine and the Jordan with the Hart V10 engine probably not that great. It just comes down to how the individual teams set up their cars. Now, in the case of the Jordan, I know they tried a low downforce setup on Barrichello's car this morning, and in effect they didn't really feel there was any advantage, so they've gone for slightly more downforce. Means overall quicker in the lap, but the penalty is they will lose speed on the straight.
3.8 seconds between Damon Hill and David Coulthard, while Häkkinen, along with Jean Alesi, the only drivers that actually use the outside curve on turn 2, as they call it, and sometimes get a big wobble on. So Hill and Coulthard, then Alesi and Häkkinen, Barrichello 5th, and in 6th position, Jos Verstappen in the first of the Benetton Fords. Christian Fittipaldi, Martin Brundle are 7th and 8th, and that's the gap between Alesi and Häkkinen, 3.7 seconds, and it's 2.2 between Häkkinen and Barrichello. Barrichello and Verstappen 14.2, but Barrichello is, he's in traffic, that's why he suddenly does that 126.
Well, Michele Alboreto now going to receive attention from Mika Häkkinen again. The Minardi Ford certainly as quick on the straight parts of the circuit, maybe even marginally quicker than Mika Häkkinen's McLaren Peugeot. And again, Mika is going to have to be courageous, because Michele Alboreto does make you work, whether you're lapping or even more so racing.
Alboreto, one of 3 drivers in this race that are Grand Prix winners.
His first Grand Prix win Well, Michele Alboreto, from my memory, was back in Las Vegas in 1982, and it was a victory that I personally was disappointed in because it ruined my chances of snatching the World Championship, which I was in contest with Keke Rosberg with.
Hill, Coulthard, Alesi. Well, Frentzen has definitely stopped on the circuit somewhere. And Frentzen went on for a very, very long time, while Christian Fittipaldi comes into the pits. Now, Christian, as usual, on a one-stop race. And I would say as usual, because there we see him. 9 times out of 10, Christian will go for one stop only. He was up to 8th position, but will lose quite a few. And 36 laps to go for Fittipaldi.
So 3rd, 4th and 5th, Alesi, Häkkinen, Barrichello, as Pierluigi Martini, who we saw in the pits very much earlier, but now in for a formal stop. Makes it back onto the circuit. And here Alesi, as he accelerates onto the straight through the renamed Ayrton Senna curve, having to be very prudent with the throttle because as hard as Ferrari are working and trying to develop this car, it still isn't up to the class of the field, which clearly is, or are, the two Williams Renaults. Comfortably in the lead, Damon Hill some 4.7 seconds ahead of teammate David Coulthard, and then Coulthard a massive 18.5 seconds ahead of third place man John Alesi.
Barrichello finally finding a way past Michele Alboreto. Losing a lot of time. He lost a second on that lap, being behind Alboreto.
Well, I'm not surprised. The speed in a straight line of these two cars probably very equal indeed, and Michele Alboreto makes his car pretty broad, and that's something he ought to be more considerate about. But that's the nature of the man, and as long as he's not deliberately delaying the program or process of the cars that are behind him, they're Heinz or Andrea de Cesaris.
De Cesaris in the pit, back in 14th position. Now de Cesaris' first pit stop. That's the one-stop race, so I assume Heinz-Harald Frentzen would have been on a one-stop race. Or maybe it was a simple case of running out of fuel. It was close to the pit stops. Hill and Coulthard, 23.8, 24.7. Alesi, 24.3. Now a little quicker than the second Williams. Häkkinen, 24.5. Barrichello, 24.8. So they're not really closing up at the moment. Jos Verstappen in 6th position, some 11 to 12 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello, and Verstappen suddenly going very slow, but that could well be traffic. It's not on our cameras. Barrichello, man who can be very moody indeed, and I think it looks like he might well stay at Jordan for another year, John.
Well, rumours in the pit lane are in abundance, and of course Barrichello's name had been linked with the Marlboro McLaren team, and rumours certainly surrounding them in terms of engines for 1995. And again here in Portugal, rumours of the Mercedes-Benz engine being placed in the back of one of those Marlboro McLarens coming to the fore again. And of course, I think virtually every young driver in the pits has at some point or other been seen slipping into the McLaren motorhome. Now, they all say it's just for coffee, of course, coffee and biscuits.
Very good coffee as well, John.
Excellent coffee. And at the same time, maybe a little sort of word, well, what are your plans for next year? And well, we can give you this and that. So nothing appears to be firmed up other than the announcement that we had prior to very stupid of David Brabham. Alesi was clearly looking to get through. David did not give him room. Alesi locked the brakes, contact was made, and that looks like third place now has been given on a plate to Mika Häkkinen.
4th to Barrichello, 5th to Verstappen, and 6th to Brundle then. Well, Alesi walks away. Have a look again. Alesi came from a long way behind, and I think Brabham never expected him to try and go underneath him.
He probably never even knew he was about to execute that particular maneuver. David could as he'd seen in his mirrors, moved a little bit over to the left. The problem was for him, by going too far left, he would have been onto the rubber and he would have then compromised himself. But once Alesi was set on that course, the speed he was travelling at meant it was inevitable that he was going to get into trouble. And again, look at this. Damon Hill, Yannick Dalmas. Damon had to be very prudent indeed, because Dalmas may not have been aware of the proximity of Damon Hill, and that was a moment which could so easily have spelled disaster. Fortunately for Damon, Dalmas pulled sufficiently over to the left, he got through, but in the course, of course, it's a let. David Coulthard, running in second place, closed down that gap to 1.4 seconds. That's what it was when they came across start-finish line.
Damon passing Christian Fittipaldi. We're on lap 40, 31 laps to go. Maybe a little half-stopping moment for Damon Hill, like, oh, I hope he's seen me, sort of thing.
In the space,
the eyes go wide open.
Yeah, in the space of 2 or 3 laps, the lead of almost 5 seconds closed down to just over a second and a half, and that, in my view, is due to the traffic. We didn't get a look at the last 2 or 3 laps and the traffic around, but the gap opens back up 2.3. That is because David Coulthard is now in the middle of the battle to get past these back markers.
Hill leads Coulthard, then it's Häkkinen in third, Barrichello fourth, Verstappen fifth, Brundle in sixth position. That's the situation at the end of lap 40 at Estoril. Welcome back here on Eurosport. We're on lap 42 of 71 of the Portuguese Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that was led by Gerhard Berger on the opening lap until he had to retire with gearbox problems. And it was Coulthard, Alesi, Hill, they all led, but then David made a small mistake. Damon Hill got through and is now leading this race after the first round of pit stops. Häkkinen, Barrichello, Verstappen, Brundle, top 6. Blundell, Panis, Irvine, Leto, Morbidelli, Fittipaldi, and the rest of the runners with Yannick Dalmas in 18th position. 19th is then Martini, 20th Adams, and in 21st position is Jean Alesi, who is out of the Grand Prix after contact with David Brabham in the Simtek Ford. But Damon Hill now well and truly in control of this Grand Prix, 4.9 seconds ahead of teammate David Coulthard and lapping half a second quicker. Well, John Häkkinen said after the Italian Grand Prix, I don't really want to be in this position. Seems I always occupy the third spot. Well, seems he's got it back again.
Well, I think the simple answer for Mika Häkkinen is get Peugeot to give him a little bit more, a lot more horsepower, because the Renault V10 engine is currently the best overall package in Formula One in terms of its power, its response to the throttle, its drivability, its weight, and its fuel economy. I'm quite certain that if Peugeot had an engine to match Renault's, we would see a much closer battle here at the front of this Portuguese Grand Prix.
Gaps between Irvine and Leto in 9th and 10th, half a second, while Damon is lining himself up to overtake Michele Alboreto. And we come down the straight, and there's a lot of traffic ahead of him. Alboreto. There's Damon Hill passing Michele. Now he's got to slow down a little into turn 1 because he's picked up some rubber which might affect the handling zone.
But the most important thing for Damon was to get himself well and truly alongside Alboreto long before the braking distances. Then he's got control of the corner. He can slow down as much as he needs. Alboreto has got to do the same. And he allows himself the time to get into position, get into the corner cleanly, and execute the corner correctly. Damon did it perfectly that time.
After his roll on Friday, landing upside down in the gravel, he nearly took pole position on Saturday. He said he was held up, it cost him 0.3 of a second. Well, that would have put him on pole by 1500 instead of second by 1500. Martin Brundle in the pits, the end of lap 43. He was in 6th position. He comes in for his second and last pit stop, I would say, during this Portuguese Grand Prix.
Well, we're looking at what I describe as a motor racing ballet. Absolutely a great stop for Brundle, 8.2 seconds in and out. And the synchronization that's required, 19 people involved in the pit stop, 3 per wheel, 2 refuelers, jackmen, somebody standing facing the refuelers. So as when they push that fuel connector into the neck of the tank, the car isn't pushed off the jack, so he's there to apply an equal force against that refueling. Back out, 8.2 seconds.
Quick stop for Brundle. We also had a good in-lap, 32.4. That's a very good in-lap for Martin Brundle. Well, means we're close to the last round of pit stops. With just under 30 laps to go. What John was talking about, Damon Hill, who landed upside down on Friday. Apparently, the kids watching at home, one of them said, "Oops, silly daddy, shouldn't do that," and basically kept on playing with his toys after that.
Well, Damon's drive in this Grand Prix has been positive, and that's the way it will be until the end, because there is no threat whatsoever to him. And mission accomplished, I think, will be the first 2 words he will speak into any microphone. The 10 points that he came to Portugal to capture look clearly very much within his grasp, and that leads up to a grandstand finale to the 1994 season, in which 1 point behind the championship Michael Schumacher, race leader, or championship leader Michael Schumacher, who will in fact be here during this week to take part in a 3-day test with the Benetton Ford team.
Michael Schumacher testing alongside Jos Verstappen and Paul Tracy. JJ Leto having his last laps in the Benetton here this afternoon. Gianni Morbidelli leaving the pit. His second stop, so... Oh, and there's Gunon off again. Dust all over the circuit.
Look at that, he doesn't know where he is on the racetrack. David Coulthard dives down the left-hand side of Gunon. He's trying to get out of Damon Hill's way, and Damon putting a lot of pressure on race leader Damon Hill. Here again, look at Gunon, too much right foot. Luckily, he didn't make contact with the barrier, but certainly his underbody would have been damaged, and he will drag a lot of dust onto the circuit, and that has allowed David Coulthard right up onto the gearbox of race leader Damon Hill. Now, I don't anticipate a battle for the lead in this Grand Prix between these 2 teammates. Maybe my silence says something that I can't say in words.
Damon Hill, half a second at the end of that intermediate, the gap between himself and David Coulthard. Damon's always been quick round that very long right-hander and goes into the pits for hit. It's David Coulthard coming into the pits. That's actually technically very good, I must admit, because there was traffic ahead of him. So David, good stop, good planning.
That is an intelligent move now. It was a planned move. He didn't just do it when he saw the traffic. That was a move that would have been counted down by the team. And a little bit slow getting out onto the pit lane again, losing vital tenths of seconds, of course. 120 kilometers per hour until you cross the line. Then finger off the button, nail the throttle, coming back onto the circuit, just between Mika Hakkinen and currently in second place, and Rubens Barrichello in third. And there you see Barrichello frustrated by the sudden appearance of David Coulthard, because that will interrupt the progress he was trying to make in his battle with Mika Hakkinen. There, Jos Verstappen in for his second stop. So once again, the pit lane vital to the outcome of this year's Grand Prix.
Verstappen actually having a very quick in-lap, John, 1:31.2. That's 2.6 seconds quicker than Coulthard did on this lap.
I think Verstappen found a shortcut into the pit lane to do that.
Running with Damon Hill, race leader, and he's coming into the pits now.
The time you've got to watch, apart from the in-lap speed, is how quick can Damon get off the jacks and back out. It was just over 8 seconds for Coulthard. Now, totally obscured by the Marlboro McLaren team, but that looks pretty good for Damon Hill, and he's rolling just under the 8 seconds, 8.1 had stopped up, but he was actually in motion just before that. So again, on that limiter, and I think the two Williams are very close as they come down into the first corner.
Damon Hill is still in the lead of this Grand Prix. Because Mika Hakkinen has gone into the pits, but Damon's in-lap was 2 seconds faster than Coulthard's in-lap. So that's easy one. Well, there's a lot of smoke from Mika Hakkinen. I hope your button works, Mika.
Well, I don't think he got the button on until he was right on the limit in first gear. And that may have been why we saw a very sharp or abrupt kick, because that literally cuts the power down to the predetermined speed. Oh, and Damon Hill really almost got the nose of his Williams chopped off as Yannick Dalmas once again became a focal point of this Grand Prix. Dalmas running down in 18th place almost saw race leader in big trouble.
Damon Hill, his out lap lets you see what the time is. David Coulthard's lap was a 44.0. After the first lap, David Coulthard's lap was a was a 44.7. So 44s for Coulthard on both pit stops. Damon Hill did it 40.9 on the previous stop. But he's got held up by Yannick Dalmas on this lap, so maybe it is a little bit less, but there's 3.7 seconds on the last intermediate between race leader Damon Hill, a 42.6, so that's another 2 seconds gain on David Coulthard, who is still in second position, some 3.8 seconds behind his race and team leader. Herbert in the pits, second stop for the Lotus team.
And really a very disappointing weekend for Lotus. The performance, the phenomenal performance from Johnny Herbert and the new Mugen Honda engine at Monza has not been repeated here. The car does not or has not suited the twists and turns of Estoril, and is a very disappointed Lotus team in the current financial situation, as well as a disappointed Johnny Herbert. They hope that they could really have found the magic ingredient in that lightened, shortened and narrower Mugen Honda V10 engine.
Lap 49 we're on. Damon Hill, race leader. David Coulthard, 3.8 seconds behind. Barrichello is third, Hakkinen fourth, Verstappen fifth, and Brundle in sixth. Well, JJ Leto's in the pit. Rejoin us after the break here on Eurosport. Welcome back here on Eurosport. Race leader Damon Hill getting through traffic. So taking Eddie Irvine now with him. They're lapping Philip Adams. Irvine's gone one lap down in 10th position, but the group Damon Hill was in wasn't a nice one to be in, John, was it?
It looked awful messy to me, but Damon's threaded his way through positively and cleanly, and most importantly, quickly. He hasn't got bogged down, he hasn't had to run at the pace of those cars. He has made it through safely, and that's what he wanted to do. Now, teammate Coulthard in second place is going to be confronted by the same group of cars, and well, he'll probably be unable to do anything better than Damon did with that particular group.
Bit of smoke coming from the back, I think, of Eddie Irvine's car.
Yes, it is. It may be part of the tyre, sometimes under severe load, might just be getting slight contact with part of the underbody. It looks that kind of smoke. It doesn't look to be something that would be serious enough to see an end for Irvine at this point.
I remember we saw smoke coming off Hakkinen's car very early in the race, and Hakkinen is still running very strongly in third position, some 9 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, Verstappen fifth and Brundle sixth. So both Renaults in the top six and both Peugeots in the top six as well. But it's two places you want both that are in the hands of Renault first and second. Damon Hill, winner of 7 Grand Prix in his Grand Prix career. He's won them all with the Williams team, and he's driving his 31st Grand Prix. Now, winning 8 out of 31 is not a bad record, John.
Well, that's the view from the onboard camera. Fortunately, Damon Hill's view is a lot clearer than that. But that's a combination of rubber and fluids from other cars. And one of the problems the driver is faced with continually when you're in traffic like this, cars that have been into the pits for refueling, cars that maybe have got seepage of water, and certainly there's a lot of rubber around the circuit, so a driver will wear frequently 3 or certainly 2 tear-offs on his helmet, but inevitably you've torn them all off before you get to half distance.
Damon Hill trying to lap Oliver Panners in the Ligier, both Renault powered, but that Ligier being very quick down the straight. The team's been a little disappointed here with the performance, but in the warm-up this morning they took some downforce off and the car very quick, but Panners very good, staying over to the left and didn't lose a lot of time, but he's got Eddie Irvine right behind him. Eddie's taken, well, in the slipstream of Damon Hill's gone with him.
Yes, he has. He's been using when Damon passed Eddie Irvine, he's been using that as a means to push his way forward and get past slower cars. One of the problems that the hard V10 engine has is it doesn't have the horsepower of the V10 Renault engine. So any opportunity to slipstream off a quicker car, such as Damon Hill, he will use and try and get drawn at the same time as Hill goes past Panis. But Panis, in spite of his youth and inexperience in Formula One, is a very old head and has been most impressive so far this year.
18 cars on the screen, while Gunon and Adams are also running in 19th and 20th position. So 20 cars we've got on the circuit, and that is only 6 retirements, and we're on lap 53.
Well, there's still a number of miles remaining, and
a lot of retirements to come in the last laps, you mean?
Well, it is a tough race, particularly this year with the revisions to the circuit. Gearbox, the whole transmission is taking a lot more punishment this year than in previous years in Estoril. But at this stage of the season, mechanical reliability ought to be considerably improved over the start of the season. For those teams outside of the top 4, it is irrelevant for the top 4 because they can test day in, day out throughout the year, but it's the smaller teams like Minardi, LaRousse, Simtek and Pacific that really have got limited budgets, that have got to try and make the best use of the resources they have, and sometimes they have to stretch them too far.
25-4, his last lap when he overtook Oliver Panners for Damon Hill. He's done all his pit stops, he's done that bit. He's now just got to get his car to the finish of the Portuguese Grand Prix. David Coulthard, let's not forget, second place, very good second place. He hasn't had a great run yet. I mean, he's finished 6th, 4th and 5th twice in his races, but he was on course for a second place finish in Monza when he ran out of fuel on that very last lap of the race. A very cruel thing to happen to this Scot.
Well, you know, when you go to the University of Formula One, that's part of the curriculum. You'll have to learn to cope with disappointments, and David certainly did it with considerable grace, and he ran back to the pits, and well, it was one of those things. Of course, remember, that was fortuitous for Damon Hill, because that was the car that Damon was due to drive, and Damon then had to jump into the spare car, and then after David Coulthard got involved in the incident at the first chicane when Eddie Irvine hunted the back of Johnny Herbert, so everything was swapped around, so Damon got the benefit of the car, and I just wonder, would that have been a reverse situation had Damon stayed with his original race car?
5.4 seconds the gap at the end of the previous lap. 20.5 seconds the gap between David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen, while Rubens Barrichello some 9 seconds behind Häkkinen, but lapping a second and a half quicker at the moment. Barrichello just putting in his fastest lap of the race so far, so we could have a little battle there maybe.
Well, we've got a situation with Mika Häkkinen, clearly in traffic. Rubens Barrichello able to run and clear air, so that gives Barrichello the chance to run at his maximum, and he's just, as Allard said, recorded his fastest lap of the race. Now Coulthard caught up to the back of Irvine, and will expect or look for the same cooperation that Irvine gave to race leader Damon Hill.
David Coulthard going to find a place somewhere to pass Irvine and Oliver Panis, and he is losing now quite a lot to Damon Hill on these laps, because he's been behind Eddie Irvine for a long time indeed. Or a long time, maybe a lap, but I mean...
Well, for David Coulthard, that is a long time, because normally he's very incisive and executes very quickly his overtaking manoeuvres, but what's appeared to me is this battle with Panis and Irvine has caused him to lose his pace, but now I would anticipate a pass on the straight. Coulthard is ideally placed to pick up the slipstream, and there
Andrea de Cesar is out of the Portuguese Grand Prix. The remaining Sauber Mercedes, what's happened? He's gone straight on through the gravel, off the gravel, and he tried to turn around, and I don't think that worked. Engine stall, the end of the road for Andrea. So the Cesar is, believe it or not, with 15 laps to go, 14 and a half laps to go, only the 7th retirement in this Grand Prix.
Well, Coulthard slipped past Irvine at the end of the straight. Now, Olivier Panis, the next car, to have a lap put on him from Coulthard. You can see the time that Coulthard has lost in getting past these two cars, and that has also caused the gap between himself and race leader Damon Hill to extend up to 6 seconds on the 56th lap, again locking up the inside front. He's been doing that consistently throughout the weekend, and certainly here this afternoon. So the run to Panis, and any hope of getting now up to the pace that Damon Hill at the head of the field is running at. And again you hear a big lift in the middle of that long curve. Now that's costing him time, not just in a lap, but onto the straight, because that momentum that he needs to carry onto the straight to give him the shot off the corner to get onto the first part of the straight quickly is being lost with that big lift.
Damon Hill found a way past Christian Fittipaldi in 8th position. Fittipaldi running in 28.1. Legacy of only one pit stop, I would say. But the one pit stop did give him 8th place provisionally, and don't forget that, well, he was 11th, so he hasn't gained that much.
But I think it's a downward spiral for Fittipaldi, because Panis and Irvine in particular are running quite a lot quicker. So before very long, I would suggest that the 8th place that Christian Fittipaldi is currently in will be 9th and possibly 10th.
On lap 58, race leader Damon Hill, 34 years old, and basically celebrated that birthday with another contract, or a contract for another year with the Williams team. He will definitely stay in 1995 to drive for the Rothmans-Williams Renault team.
And for a driver to know his state of employment at this stage of the season for the following year, I think is a great comfort. And it certainly gives me the view that the faith that the Williams Renault team have placed in Damon Hill and his efforts throughout the 2 years that he's in the team has been justified.
Mika Häkkinen going around that long right-hander.
And just see how bumpy the corner is. You can see the left rear suspension unit is popping up and down. And Mika, as ever, exuberant in his exits of corners, uses parts of the racetrack that nobody ever thought were there.
And that shot actually shows quite good how close he actually comes to the edge. They're trying to intimidate Michele Alboreto, and Alboreto wasn't having taken any notice, or as well, you might as well wait for another couple of corners, Mika.
And the problem for that, for Mika Häkkinen, is that In terms of out-and-out performance in a straight line and in acceleration, there's a little to pick and choose between the two cars. Clearly, the McLaren is the quicker car in the lap time. But again, Häkkinen now trapped behind a car that really is going to impede its progress.
That's a good one.
Well, Michele Alboreto, in fact, lifted off early and allowed Mika Häkkinen to get through. That wasn't just genius behind the wheel.
Looked good anyway. Mika Häkkinen locking the wheel. Going into the new left-right. Well, the gap now between race leader and second placeman is 7.6 seconds. Mika Häkkinen is some 29 seconds behind race leader Damon Hill and stuck behind Pierluigi Martini at this moment. Crossing start finish. And let's just see, but look behind Mika Häkkinen we see Rubens Barrichello, not far behind Barrichello we see Jos Verstappen, and then there's a big gap to Martin Brundle.
Well, if you think that Mika Häkkinen had problem getting past the two Minardis, then his closest challenger, Rubens Barrichello, is going to face the same problems. Because, as we mentioned just a moment ago, the straight line performance of the Peugeot, the Ford HB and the Hart are all so similar that the difference in lap time comes purely from the driving skills and the relative chassis merits.
So, a good finish possible with Häkkinen now being able to get away from both the Minardis. Rubens Barrichello still behind them. Barrichello in his mirrors growing and growing. That green Benetton Ford of Jos Verstappen. Brundle is some 15 seconds behind Verstappen, so that is a long, long way indeed. But three young drivers, four young drivers, I should say, and Damon, maybe not the youngest one in age, but only 31 Grand Prix, and he's won 8 of them. Actually, I think Häkkinen's done more Grand Prix than Damon Hill so far, John.
I think he probably has. And it will be interesting to see how Mika Häkkinen, when Grand Prix wins come his way, will cope with it. But this, again, a moment for Barrichello, facing two cars which he knows are not going to be easy. And it's Olivier Panis, if I was Eric Bernard. But then those two Minardis ahead of him, and to find a way to squeeze past and not be drawn into the pace that they're running at. Well, Rubens is going to have to put his thinking cap on all the way around the Estoril circuit.
Well, he's got a very good thinking cap. Rubens Barrichello's been in Formula One. It's his third year so far, and he was very young when he got into Formula One, but very mature indeed.
Well, only 22 now, so his first Grand Prix he competed in before his 21st birthday, and that birthday was celebrated last year at Monte Carlo. It's always a convenient birth date.
Oops, did it stop?
Well, it looked like he lost forward motion just momentarily, and whether that was just foot slippage or didn't quite get all the momentum picked up, but it did look like it was the case. Anyway, Barrichello now facing the experience of Michele Alboreto. There's trouble on the outside of the Ayrton Senna corner.
The Ligier off the circuit, so that's probably Eric Bernard who's had a trip on the grass, and that's not the corner you want to go on the grass.
No, at all, and that is one of those moments when your heart well and truly is in your mouth.
Yeah.
Now Rubens cleanly and executed slide down the inside. Again, Michele Alboreto knew when he's beaten, didn't offer any resistance, and in fact no reason to do so anyway, as he is now a lap down to Barrichello. Let's look again. You see on the outside, and how Bernard kept that car off the barriers is amazing to me, because the outside of the corner is perilously close to that Armco barrier, but off the barrier he kept it and continues on his way.
There's Jos Verstappen or JJ Leto in the gravel. It's a Benetton, that's for sure. Now, which one is it? We're waiting for...
And he gets into a bit of a tank slapper as he comes up to rejoin or to join the new part of the circuit. Bits of the bodywork flying off. And there the onboard camera shows you the violence of even a simple spin in this JJ Leto. And further disappointment for JJ in a season really that has promised so much, but all evaporated in that testing accident early in the year before the season began at Silverstone. And one really wonders now what has Formula One got left for JJ. He certainly, in his various points of comeback, has not been able to find the speed and the comfort in the Benetton Ford team that he was looking for.
Third place man is Mika Häkkinen on your screen at the moment, but big battle going on for fourth position. Some 9.2 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen is Rubens Barrichello, and he's being chased by Jos Verstappen, 0.4 of a second behind the Jordan Hart. So young drivers, the two youngest drivers in the race, Verstappen and...
Well, a pretty quick moment there for JJ Leto. You saw just ran wide over the curb. He kept his foot on the throttle, and that then allowed the car to get pitched into a high-speed spin that carried him all the way up onto the gravel beds at the point where old circuit goes into new.
The gap between race leader and second place man is 5.7 seconds. While he ran very wide. Mika Häkkinen, I hope we're going to see that in replay. Had a big wobble on, then took a long time for it to get the car back, and he's lost a lot of time. And Verstappen's off. Verstappen was off the circuit. Now, is there oil down, I wonder? Because Mika Häkkinen went very wide as well.
Alan, I would suggest it's half the earth that was brought back onto the track by Eric Bernard. The radiator boxes of the car, the underfloor of the car would be clogged with earth and dust. And when he drove back onto the track, he drove back on around that point. So the circuit is just simply dirty. So you come around with very hot, clean race tires, get onto that dust, the earth that's on the track chokes the tires, and all the grip is gone.
Hill, Coulthard, Häkkinen, Barrichello, Verstappen and Brundle, your top six. Fittipaldi, Irvine, Blundell, Pennis, Morbidelli and Bernard. Well, we have 19 cars still running in this Grand Prix. 19th and last is Philip Adams, who will be 18th very shortly. But Verstappen, whoa, lucky man there.
And Verstappen, as well as Bernard, has dragged half of the Estoril countryside back onto the track as well. So I'm sure there'll be a few drivers who will be walking around looking for a few other drivers to say, what are you doing?
Damon Hill leads the Grand Prix. We're on lap 65, 7 laps to go. Coulthard second, 4.7 seconds behind. Mika Häkkinen in third, Rubens Barrichello in fourth. But it's a case of keeping it on the island and getting it to the finish for Damon Hill.
Well, that in reality is no problem now whatsoever. The biggest concern he has will again remain with some of the slower traffic around the circuit, and there have been a couple of moments where Damon, I thought, almost had the nose of his car being clipped by some of the slower cars, but he survived and comfortably in control on lap 65. And this is the second of the duo races where Michael Schumacher had to sit it out. So Michael Schumacher back either in Monte Carlo or in Germany watching this race and seeing and realizing what he has got in store as we come down to the final three Grand Prix of the 1994 season. And that's a battle I think is going to be absolutely superb.
A bit like, John, like a NASCAR race where they has a yellow flag with 10 laps to go, and then you get the race proper. We got 3 races to go after this one in the 1994 championship, and there's 1 point between Hill and Schumacher, and it's those last 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a real shootout. It's going to be between 2 guys and 2 teams, and I don't think any of the 3 remaining circuits favor one team over the other. So I certainly look forward with great anticipation to see who will turn out to be the worthy 1994 world champion.
John, if we look ahead to that Grand Prix and the fact that it is a head-to-head between Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher, the fact that Nigel Mansell comes in to join the Williams team, and the way David Coulthard is shadowing Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher hasn't got a teammate that does that. With all respect to Jos Verstappen, who's I think got a great future ahead of him, but he's not quick enough yet to give Schumacher to ride shotgun for him.
Well, to be truthful, I don't think Schumacher needs anybody riding shotgun. He's more than capable of doing the job on Damon Hill, Nigel Mansell, David, whoever you like. That is the nature of Michael Schumacher. He is an outstanding qualifier, he's an outstanding racer, and he's had a brilliant backup throughout the year from the Benetton Ford team. So really, it's Damon Hill who's going to have to take the challenge to Michael Schumacher, not the other way around.
3.9 seconds, the gap between Damon Hill and David Coulthard at the end of lap 66. Just under 5 laps to go for race leader. And there's not going to be a fight, I think, between Barrichello and Verstappen. The gap, 3 seconds. And, well, before Verstappen closes that gap and then is actually able to pass Barrichello, that there won't be enough laps left. Still amazes me that with 5 laps to go, we have 18 cars in the race. Leto, the last of the retirements, and 8 retirements. I mean, 8 retirements with 5 laps to go, John.
Well, that's very good. I think the public and the viewers want to see more of this. They want to see battles, not just at the head of the field. We've not really had the chance to enjoy some of the battles that have been taking place throughout the field. We've had brief glimpses of it, but we had lots of shots of single cars. Over there, Jean-Marc Guenot, right rear tire. Well, he's going to try and get back, but of course, he went, whatever the problem was, he went past the entrance to pit lane, so now he's got to complete yet another lap, and the rear of that car will be grounding itself, the underbody and the jabwalk plank will be grinding itself away. So a very eventful weekend for Jean-Marc Guenot.
John, talking about tactical reliability, there's, if we look at all the retirements, 8 so far, basically JJ Leto, Jean Alesi and David Brabham, for various reasons, drove off the circuit, and they might still have been running, which means we only had 5 technical problems so far. Amazing to me.
And on a circuit that is very hard mechanically, so in spite of it being 3/4 away through the season, no respite and no let up from the teams in their preparation.
We're getting ready for a grand finale here in Portugal. 67 laps, Hill, Coulthard, Hakkinen, Barrichello, Verstappen and Brundle. Your point scorers for the day. Irvine up to 7th position, past Christian Fittipaldi and Oliver Panis. Morbidelli, Bernard and Johnny Herbert is now in 12th position. Well, we see the gap between Damon Hill and David Coulthard getting smaller and smaller. It's now down to 2.1 seconds, but then David is going to stay behind team leader Damon Hill, and that would be a good finish if they would finish like this. Showtime.
Well, the important thing, of course, forget about the showtime, is that both Williams, Renault and the 2 drivers are scoring maximum points, and that's very good news indeed for Williams in the Constructors' Championship. As good news for them as it is for Damon for his 10 points.
At the end of lap 69 and the start of lap 70, and if it stays like it is, Williams will be leading Benetton for the first time this year in the Constructors' World Championship. 16 points is 89 and 2 for Verstappen's Benetton in 5th is 87 points, and for Benetton, so that would be a very good result indeed for Damon Hill, David Coulthard, the whole of the Williams team, and of course everybody at Renault Sport. Mika Hakkinen in 3rd position, Rubens Barrichello 4th, but Verstappen scored up again. 0.8 of a second with a couple of laps to go. Now, please, can we see that?
Well, we saw when Jos Verstappen got right up to the back of Barrichello, he ran wide, coming on to the main straight. But this is the closing stage of the Grand Prix, 2 laps to go. And really now, just a procession of the domination that everybody anticipated here in Estoril, from Damon Hill and David Coulthard, and of course, everybody back at Williams Grand Prix and Renault Sport in France. So, in 3 weeks' time, we're going to see, and there again, a little bit of, who's that? Well, looked rather limp.
Looked like a Simtek, actually.
It certainly did. I hate to say it, but it did look like a Simtek. And once again, Jean-Marc Gounon proving the spinability of his Simtek Ford.
We're entering the last lap for Damon Hill and David Coulthard. 1 lap to go, 4.3 kilometers to go in this race, a race that has taken quite a lot longer than last year. We're now 1 hour and 43 minutes on the way, so we're going to end up about 10 minutes more than last year due to an extra corner. 13 instead of 11, 923 in total today. Well, it stays like this. Damon Hill has closed the gap with Michael Schumacher to just 1 point, and Williams will take over first place in the Constructors' World Championship with 3 Grand Prix to go. And David Coulthard incidentally moves straight up to 6th position, as far as I can work out so far, in the equal 6 with Martin Brundle in the Drivers' Championship. That's good for him as well, and his best result ever. Damon Hill, 4th victory of the Grand Prix season. Häkkinen again finishing 3rd. He finished 3rd in Monza a couple of weeks ago. He finished 2nd in Spa, but 3rd in Britain and 3rd also in Imola earlier in the year. But it's Damon Hill, John, 10 points, and he's closed the gap. David Coulthard finishing right behind him. This is a team finish, 1-2, and look at David Coulthard, very happy as well.
Not only a team finish, it is a dream finish. Damon Hill has achieved his objectives. He came first to Monza with the opportunity of victory. He succeeded. He came to Estoril and has again succeeded. He now has got the biggest challenge in his life, in his Grand Prix career, and that is to go head-to-head for the 1994 Drivers' World Championship with Michael Schumacher, the man who has been the dominant man throughout 1994, who's serving a 2-race ban for his infringement of a black flag all the way back in July at the British Grand Prix. And I have to say, I cannot wait. But we may get a little bit of a glimpse of what we can expect, because over the next 3 or more days here in Estoril, there will be a major Formula One test being held. Schumacher will be a part of that. He needs to be a part of that to ensure that when he and his Benetton Ford team take on Damon Hill and the might of Renault and Williams, that he is in a position to defend that 1-point lead. But it'll be a tough battle, and it's going to be an exciting battle. I can't wait.
Damon Hill wins his 8th Grand Prix of his Grand Prix career. The 14th Portuguese Grand Prix is his. Last year he had pole position, finished 3rd behind Michael Schumacher and Alain Prost. Prost winning the World Championship with that 2nd place. Damon Hill didn't start from pole position, was behind Gerhard Berger and teammate David Coulthard. Coulthard just run wide a little bit, Damon slipped through, and, well, half a second, but that's all immaterial. He won the Grand Prix, that's what he wanted to do. Fastest lap in the race by 2nd place man David Coulthard on lap 12, a 1:22.446. Häkkinen 3rd, Barrichello, Verstappen, Brundle, Irvine, Fittipaldi, Panis, Morbidelli, Bernard 11th, 12th Herbert, 13th Martini, Alboreto, Dalmas, Gounon and Adams. 17 finishers, 9 retirements in what everybody thought was going to be a race of attrition.
Well, the attrition is normal towards the back of the field, but the back of the field, and if you exclude the driving errors that took out certainly 3 people, good record of reliability from those teams, not in such a fortuitous position as those at the front.
So 1 point difference between Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill, 76-75. 3 races to go, 30 points on the table. Verstappen moving into the top 10 with that result, and also, of course, David Coulthard. Constructors' Championship, and it's Williams-Renault that has taken the lead for the very first time in the 1994 season. 89 points to Benetton Ford, 87. Ferrari, 58. McLaren, 37. Jordan, 20. And Tyrrell, 13. And then it's Ligier, Sauber, Footwork, Minardi and LaRousse. Congratulations for Coulthard and Hill by Joseph, the physiotherapist and food advisor, as he calls it, and a very famous man indeed. There's Mika Häkkinen that finished 3rd, but it's Hill, Coulthard and Häkkinen on the rostrum, and 1 point the difference between Schumacher and Damon Hill.
Well, Damon Hill will be on the winner's podium, and he looks delighted. I've not seen Damon look so happy in quite a long time, and it was a victory that he knew he had to succeed with. And as we look forward, as we said, to the European Grand Prix, the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, and the final round of the championship in Adelaide, everything is now teed up for a real grand finale. And it's not just a battle for the drivers, of course, it's the championship for the constructors. But one has to say that Benetton Ford, in reality, can only rely upon Schumacher to deliver. Jos Verstappen in his first season and JJ Leto have not been sufficiently fast or consistent throughout the year to deliver points, and really Benetton's points have been won by one man, more or less.
For the first time in the 1994 season, we have a 1-2 by any team at the end of a Grand Prix. Damon Hill and David Coulthard do it for the Williams team, the Williams-Renault team. So, Damon Hill and the trophy. John, a copybook race, basically, by the team.
Well, a copybook race in many respects, but for me a copybook race is having pole position, never losing the lead, fastest lap and first position. But a fine effort by the team. They've achieved all their objectives. They've got fastest race lap. They've won the race. They've got 18 points in the Constructors' Championship. 16 points in the Constructors' Championship. And, of course, Damon Hill has now moved himself into contention. And remember, way back to the start of the year when the late Ayrton Senna joined the Williams-Renault team, everybody had it as a foregone conclusion that that was going to be the dominant team. Then the tragedy that occurred in Imola, and, of course, for the team to recover from the great loss, for Damon Hill's efforts, and for those of David Coulthard, who was thrust into the racing seat, not just the testing seat. A difficult year for everybody within the Williams-Renault team, and this is now the reward for all that effort.
3 weeks, and then we have the European Grand Prix at Jerez, a circuit that is changed since the last time we were there. One chicane has been put in and a couple of corners have changed, but still an interesting racetrack, John.
It'll be an interesting race as well as a racetrack. Three fairly happy-looking young men, and one in his early 30s, as Damon Hill lifts, pours, I think more to the point, he's decided that it's easier to pour half the champagne out into his trophy. And great to see the winner of a Grand Prix actually drinking some of that very fine Moet Chandon champagne that is provided to the drivers. And now, well, is he going to take it with him and give it to the team, or is he going to take it and spray it over the balcony as Mika Häkkinen? Well, Damon's got the flowers, and I think those are going to be... There they are, there they've been thrown over into the crowd below. Many of his team members and the press and media that are there saluting his victory.
3 weeks, Jerez, Eurosport's going to be there, you're going to be there too. 1 point between Schumacher and Hill, 2 between Williams and Benetton.
So far out of their personal experience, and I include myself in that, but they've kept that up for an hour and a half, and it's an indication of how supremely fit a Grand Prix driver has to be. Many people think they just sit there, turn the wheel, operate the pedals and change the gears, but there's a lot more to it than that. So I can tell you that Hill, Coulthard and Häkkinen are now in the interview room as you look across to the Paddock Club, where the VIPs and their guests assemble to watch the race. And you can see the hills in the background. Beyond them is the sea, because this is just about the most westerly point of Europe.
Crucial victory for you and brings you within 1 point of Michael Schumacher's championship lead. He must be delighted with this afternoon's performance.
Absolutely, completely and utterly delighted, because I knew that we had a good car here and a good engine and the whole package was good, but you're asking a lot from reliability and all the luck factors that can't be accounted for. And so it's a big relief to do the job and get the job, get everything under your belt and finish the job off properly with 10 points. And now we've got a fantastic platform from which to challenge in the last 3 races.
How difficult was this afternoon's race?
It was a good race. I mean, it was very tough. It's a very physical circuit. I had difficulty with the car in the early section of the race, and at the pit stop the car felt better. Varying conditions, a lot of problems with back markers, people generally you know, having their own race and those sort of usual things. But once Gerhard was out and Jean was out, then the race was, you know, with respect to David, of course, he was pushing hard, and the race was looking good.
Well, turning to you, David Coulthard, I'm sure everybody's delighted to see you here, your first podium finish of the year, and one which I'm sure you're going to savour.
Well, yeah, it's been a long time coming, because I've been running on the top 3 in the last 3 Grand Prix, and of course I've had some problems, but I was praying here every lap when I was counting down to the finish that something wouldn't happen, and I'm very happy to be here in my last race for Williams.
First one, Williams won 2 of the year, and presumably it's one that also is going to send a message to the Williams management about yourself for next year.
Well, I hope so. You know, I feel very much a part of the team, and I want to remain with the team next year. And of course, I just need to wait and see what happens. But you know, really, I just need to thank the team for, first of all, having the faith to put me in the car when probably a lot of other people would have put more experienced drivers in the car. And this really is for all my mechanics who haven't had a podium this year and they've had a terrible year. So this is for them for having the faith, even when I was having some bad races.
Mika Häkkinen, another 3rd position, but one you had to really fight for this afternoon. You had an interesting battle with Barrichello at one stage.
Yeah, the gap was all the time between 2 seconds, but tactic, again, what we did was absolutely magic, and that gave me the good opportunity to push a little bit and to make the little gap for the Barrichello. But in general talking, the race was tough all the way from start to finish. And I mean, only struggle completely in the race was to overtake the people who I was lapping, and also problem to pass the people on straight line, because I didn't really have a speed on the straight line what I wanted to have.
Well, Damon, Next race, we got Nigel back alongside you, and Michael Schumacher, of course. What are the prospects?
Well, it's going to be hot competition, isn't it? And Michael will be straining at the leash, and he has been probably straining at the leash for the last 2 races, so he'll be pretty fired up. I think that though that we've got 3 days testing here at Estoril to come, and we've got a lot of things to try to make improvements with the car, and I think we're going to be tough to beat, I think, when he returns.
And a final thought on today's performance?
It's a magic result. I mean, it's a cliche, I know, but it really is a terrific result, and I've got a great sense of relief because a lot of people have been kind of considering these 2 races where Michael was away as a foregone conclusion, and it's not as simple as that. So to actually have pulled it off is a fantastic achievement, and all the compliments to Renault and to Williams for providing me with equipment that is 100% reliable and competitive.
Well, congratulations to all 3 of you.